Awesome. Well, here we are. We're here with Elliot Carlyle from CFDA. You're back on another episode of the Fashion Hive, a Kansas City Fashion Week production. And as much as I feel like I could give you a wonderful, wonderful introduction, I feel like it's best to hear it straight from you because I'm everything that I'm going to say is going to completely underserve everything that you do. So let's hear Elliot. Let's tell us about Elliot.
Oh my gosh, where do I start? That's such a layered thing. I would say in a nutshell, I'm a people builder. I love what I do through the lens of consulting or through the technology of consulting. As I say, I'm very happy to be here on behalf of CFDA Connects, a program that I was tapped to create back in 2020, and we launched it in 2021 to support, recognize, provide access and resources to select regional fashion weeks across America in an effort to amplify fashion. And that's really, in a nutshell, what I do in everything. I'm about building platforms to provide visibility and also exposure for those who have been traditionally underrepresented and underserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome.
Thank you.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I think stands out, and one, we're super excited to have you on our show,
Thank
right?
you.
We're always super excited to have you here with coming to Kansas City Fashion Week,
It means so
but to
much.
exclusively have a sit down interview with you is truly an honor. It's something that we
Yeah.
all look forward to
Oh,
today.
thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. Y'all are so amazing.
but with that being said, we love hearing about people's journey, right? You didn't just fall into CFDA, or
Whoa.
CFDA didn't just pop up overnight.
Yeah.
Um, but you also had to take steps to get here. What explain that to some of our viewers that don't have an opportunity to actually sit down and chat with you? Like, what was your journey like getting to this point?
Ooh, that's so loaded. I will tell you, interestingly, I started my journey as a college dropout. And I say that because that was how I ventured into fashion. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I was not a person that ever can say to you truthfully or authentically that I was ever interested in fashion as a career because when I was a kid, I was a music student, music head. I was a performing arts kid. You ever seen the show Glee? That was my
Yes.
life. That was me. I was a show choir kid, elementary school, middle school, and also high school. So when I graduated high school, there was no question as to what I would do. Of course, I'm going to do music. It's the only thing that I've ever done, and I got a full music scholarship. And then my second year, I decided to drop out. It just was no longer something that served me. And I just said, I know that I'm good at doing other things. I always saw myself as a business person. I can say that. I always saw myself doing business. I saw myself in the office. I saw myself at a desk. I always liked wearing suits. And that was kind of the way I presented even when I was in school. I wore Stacey Adams and ties and button up shirts to school. I didn't really dress in jeans and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had them, but that just wasn't my aesthetic. And so when I decided that music was no longer a thing that I wanted to do, I realized I had lost my passion for it. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but Fashion Week, this was in the MySpace days, and a lot of people I connected with, they were starting to talk about Fashion Week, so it piqued my interest to go. At that time, I hadn't even read a Vogue magazine before in my life. I was just like, let me go and figure it out. So I went and discovered that I could not get in, and though Fashion Week in the regional markets is different than New York, like you can come, you could buy a ticket, and you get access. New York is not like that. So, you have to be invited in. It's an industry event. You need to be press or industry in order to go. So I did ask some questions and I was educated in that way. And then I was advised to come and volunteer. And so that's what I did. I came back the next season, applied. I applied before I came because I wanted to make sure that I had a reason to be here, and I was accepted. Back then, you could do an interview on Skype. Remember Skype?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I'm dating myself, and they did a Skype interview with me, and I was accepted, and so I came, and then. When I was working, they had to fire a production captain, and they ended up offering me the position. And so this was the years of Fashion Week at Lincoln Center, and I started doing production for Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. Interestingly, my first check that I got, actually at that time, CFDA employed the volunteer staff, and they arranged. And so my first check in fashion actually came from CFDA. So it's kind of like a
Oh,
full
Full
circle
full
circle.
moment,
circle
yeah.
moment.
And I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever told that. I think in this moment it just occurred to me that it is a full circle moment.
Yes.
I've had a lot of those in my career when I think about it, because then fast forward to 2012, I decided to go back to school and get my degree, and I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, where I got very involved in Charleston Fashion Week as well. And at that time, I ended up working with Fern Malice, who is the creator of New York Fashion Week. So another full circle moment, because it was because of Fashion Week that I entered into the industry. And from there, I did PR. I built my own PR firm called VRE7 at the time. It stood for Visual Renaissance Experience 7. My business partner, KJ Anderson, who's now in LA doing film. And I did that for a number of years. Then I went back to school, still was doing freelance PR, got into, over the years, got into marketing, creative direction. I did a brief stint as Gladys Knight's creative director for a while.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
after
pretty cool.
That
graduating.
is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then moved to New York in 2017. Fern asked me to come and work for her in her office, and so I did that. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I decided to make a pivot. As everybody, that was the buzzword. Everybody was, oh, pivot,
Yes.
pivot, pivot.
Yeah.
And I found myself as a consultant. So many of my friends and other industry colleagues were calling me, what should we do? I want to rebrand. I want to do this. And I'm thinking, while I'm helping everybody else, I'm looking at myself like, I need to shift too. What am I going to do? And so I decided to go into consulting full time at that, but still had no clue as I didn't know what was going to happen. Honestly, I was just as clueless as the next person during the pandemic. Like, nobody knew anything. I didn't know whether the industry was going to continue, what was going to happen. But Stephen Cove, the CEO of the CFDA, we ended up having a conversation, and that's when he asked me about what could CFDA do for regional fashion weeks. And so I had this idea, and that's how Connects came about.
That's
is
awesome.
amazing.
And I know there's a lot that I said in that.
Yeah,
There's
no.
so
No, no,
many.
no.
There's
No.
so many
That's
things
No,
awesome.
you're
that
good.
have happened in that.
So yeah, as you kind of already just previously touched on
Mhm.
CFDA, can you tell us a little bit more for our audience who may not
Mhm.
know what that's all about or how you work with Fashion Week? Can you
Oh
give us a little
yes,
bit about
yes,
that?
amazing. Okay, great. So the CFDA is it's the abbreviation or the initials for the Council of Fashion Designers of America, and it's been around. It was founded by Eleanor Lambert. They just celebrated the 60th anniversary, so it is the headquarters of the American fashion industry. I would say that, as Fern says all the time. And they're not a governing body, but they are an industry authority that ensures the success and the sustainability of American fashion in the national, but also the global economy. And so one of those initiatives that came out of that is CFDA Connects, which serves regional fashion organizations who are when we look at diversity and equity and inclusion, we often pigeonhole it to race, right? But I say that you don't just have to be black or brown for you to experience what it is to be underserved or underrepresented. And oftentimes in markets such as Kansas City, who is off the beaten path from the major markets of fashion,
Yeah.
you often feel disconnected, and you often feel like you're not a part of the conversation or even connected to the resources that are available. And so this initiative and this program helps to bridge that gap and make sure that you're involved in the conversation and you're getting that visibility as well, because there is fashion in Kansas City, there is
Yeah.
fashion in Chicago, there is fashion in Omaha, Nebraska, there is
Mhm.
fashion in San Diego, there's fashion everywhere. It's not just New York, LA, or Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love what you said. There's fashion everywhere, and
Yeah.
and you said this last night. And shameless plug, I'm going to put it as my Facebook caption to
Oh.
recap this Fashion Week
I don't remember what I
season.
said.
But you said, when you stood up, you had mentioned fashion is an industry that touches everyone.
Yes.
You know
yes.
why? Because everyone wears clothes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
yes.
the amount of people that we could go into my background, and that's a whole nother conversation. But when people are like, you really do something with Kansas City Fashion Week, but it's that we all wear clothes,
Mhm.
So I love that you said that. It's not just LA, it's not just New York, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and every
Yeah.
region has something unique that they bring. One of my favorite things to do is when I travel to these cities, is to go around and just pay attention to the style, pay attention to the way that people are dressing. And every market brings something very unique that is to be celebrated and appreciated. One thing that I just want to do for anybody, if there's something I can leave as far as legacy, I want people to know that it's not about where you are. Like, it's about where you intend to be and what you intend to build, what you intend to establish. Because yes, nobody can choose how we're born or what we're born into, or the
Yeah.
location we're born. We can wish, oh, if I had been born in New York. I remember when I discovered in New York that they had a fashion high school. They have a high school of
Oh,
fashion
wow.
industries.
Oh.
That's
And I
awesome.
went, amazing experience, amazing
Yeah.
visit. The kids, I mean, what they're doing. And I said to myself, Now, if I had this, you know what I'm saying? If I had this, man, oh man, by the time I was 25, where I would be, I mean, it was just amazing. But,
Mhm.
I couldn't get upset about, what I did have
Yeah.
access to because it made me the man that I am today. And so, I want people not to feel discouraged about even what they may deem as a disadvantage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you can borrow from every experience in your life and it will prepare you for the moment of now. I believe that. Even what I do now, getting up last night, talking last night in front of that audience. People say, how can you just talk in front of people? That comes from my childhood.
Yeah.
I have a background in ministry and I used to do a lot of talking at church. Like, and I was made everything. I was telling Jermaine last night that everything that I do now, I actually can pinpoint to when I was a kid at church, having to get up and
Wow.
talk in front of
That's
audience. So
awesome.
I don't, no crowd. I mean, I'm not nervous. I don't get nervous and talk in front of people, but I'm able to borrow from those experiences. I mean, things that I did in leadership when I was in high school. I was the president of the Ethnic History Club. I was on the Student Leadership Council. Even in college, I was the president of the African American Student Association. I did fashion show fundraisers. I mean, I did a lot of things that now I'm like, wow, I've been doing this all my life. And sometimes I think that we want to discredit things that don't seem like
Mhm.
they connect, but they actually do, and you're
Yeah.
able to borrow from them to empower you in the now
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And with that being said, you talked about all your volunteer experiences that
Hmm.
kind of led you to where you are and like how big you
Yes.
are now.
Oh.
So, is there any other CFDA programs that people can get involved in to become more like invested in the fashion industry?
Yes, well, there is. If you're a designer, of course, there's the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, which is the application is open right now. It runs through the 15th. That is, one of their flagship programs that everybody who's anybody in fashion they know about. It's a very good program. There's that, and then there's a new program that I actually helped consult on the build out of at the same time I was doing Connects, and that's the Impact program. And that program is, of course, in existence to empower black and brown creators and professionals in the industry, so that they can have sustainability and opportunity in the industry as well. So those are some really great things. But also just their workshops and webinars that they have.
Mhm.
I encourage people to sign up on the mailing list to find out what classes or sessions are coming out, because they really do a great job. Sasha Brown, who is in charge of professional development programming at CFDA, she does a really great job of educating the industry through those sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. We love that CFDA is always a part of Fashion
Oh
Week for
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
We love being a partner for sure.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Did you have
yes.
a question? I saw you kind of leaning in there.
So you touched a bit on where all CFDA has taken you and everything. What keeps you coming back to Kansas City? Because you've been here. This is what, your third season here?
It's my third
Really?
season.
That's
Mhm.
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. I will tell you something that I praise Tisha and Phil on all the time is the fact that they have built such a community here. One of the struggles that I found for regional fashion weeks is the fact that if you compare it to New York, people say, well, why is New York such a force? Why is New York such a staple? I mean, it is New York. But the truth of the matter is fashion is respected as an economic driver in New York. That's the difference. In these different markets, fashion is not respected. So most of the leaders I work with, and you all are probably familiar with this, you're working for government and legislature and city officials and even business owners and people that could sponsor to really look at this as an economic driver. What you are doing and what these talents are doing, these creatives are doing, is really pushing the local economy as well. And we need your support to do that. So New York has like mastered that because it's just been around for some years. But when I travel to a region, come to Kansas City, and you see the community and the enthusiasm and the respect that people have for fashion here, that's what I love, because that takes time to build. And many leaders are still struggling to kind of get that support. But the numbers, the fact that every show is sold out, is incredible to me. My first time coming here was during the pandemic, and they had that um, moderated version
Yeah.
that was done virtually and taped at the venue that we were at. But to see that people still bought tickets, all the tickets were sold. It was a different environment, couldn't have but about 75 people, but people still came and supported because they believed in it. And that's what it takes. I thrive off of that energy. And so it's the community. And Tisha and Phil are two of the greatest leaders I've ever met. I love them, I love their heart. But you all too, just the fact that you volunteer your time, this is not anything that's easy to build, and especially when you don't have the income or the revenue streams that can pay for a paid staff. But you have people who show up and do this as if they're getting, a salary and benefits and all. I mean,
Yes.
you can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that. And so I just love the energy and the vibration that you feel even in this room, even today, even though the show isn't going on just yet, but you still feel it in the room. And that's
Yeah,
that's something
sure.
that I bring. I bring expectation with me when I come to Kansas City, but I also take away fulfillment. Yeah.
Good.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
It definitely feels like Christmas Eve, like every night, like we're
Yeah.
laying down and we're like, it's midnight and we're laying down, but like Santa's coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like Fashion Week is
Yes.
tomorrow.
It
Like,
is.
we
It
know
is.
next
It
show.
is. And then when
Um,
it's over, you're sad.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes,
Yeah.
It is a really sad. Like Saturday is my favorite and least favorite show
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Exactly.
I'm like, no,
You're
everyone's
Yeah.
driving
leaving.
home knowing you have nothing to do the
Yeah.
next day.
And it's still fun. New
Yes.
York, New York Fashion Week has its moments, but when New York Fashion Week is over, I'm like, thank God. It's just like, oh, I can rest. But no, this is a
Yes.
beautiful thing you all are doing here.
Well,
and
Thank
and
you.
just providing so much opportunity,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you for the kudos to all of us. But
Yes.
what you talked about New York Fashion Week, and I think people have a misconception even of that. In our introductory podcast episode, we talked about like fashion's not like the Devil Wears Prada, right? Like
Yeah,
No.
it's
the
not
community
cutthroat
here,
like that,
right?
not aggressive.
But walk us through a little bit if you would like to walk us through New York Fashion Week. Is it all in one venue? I think that's something that a lot of people
Yes.
think that it
Mhm.
is.
But no, we wish.
Yeah.
We wish. And it's oh my gosh, that's such a pain point. But no, it's all over the city. Honestly, it's the most spread out thing. There's just no containing it. It's just everywhere. And what's interesting is there's New York Fashion Week, the shows, right?
Mhm.
So those are what the official shows are the shows that IMG produces.
Okay.
And then you have the fashion calendar, the shows that are on the calendar. Now, people
Okay.
get confused about this because there are two calendars. So
Okay.
there's the American Collection calendar, and that collection or assortment or edit of shows that make that calendar is one that's curated by CFDA's team, and they do that for press and industry who want to know who are the main people we need to see, who are the people that you have vetted, that you have said these are people you need to put on your schedule. So it was more an industry effort to help them, as I understand it. It was a request, and so that's something that CFDA responded to in that way. Everybody doesn't make that calendar because it's curated. But to be on the fashion calendar, you can join and list your event. Like Kansas City Fashion Week is listed on the official calendar. That's a major thing. It's a calendar that Eleanor Lambert started. I'm sorry, Ruth Finley. Eleanor Lambert started at CFDA. Ruth Finley started the fashion calendar, and then CFDA bought it from her and made it digital. And there's a wonderful documentary about that called Calendar Girl. You all should watch that. It's called
Yeah.
Calendar Girl. I'm not.
Okay.
It's on somewhere streaming, but you can find it, and it gives you the whole history of how the fashion calendar was done, and it's really amazing.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
then
awesome.
you have NewYorkFashionWeek.com, which are New York Fashion Week, the shows that IMG produces, and that's another calendar that's more exhaustive and has all the digital activations, it has all the showroom appointments, it has all the presentations and all the runway shows, and those are just what you can recognize as what is officially New York Fashion Week.
Okay.
Now, outside of that, you have all these other productions that go on, and I'm sure many of the regional designers know about them because, from what I understand, many of these production companies they go after these designers in the regions. And just a word of advice since we're here, when you're outside of New York and you don't know and you want to be in, always do your vetting, always ask questions, always investigate. If a production company is telling you, oh, we have we can promise you press, we can promise you buyers, you have the right to request a list of those. I want to know who the press is, I want to know who the buyers are that attend your show, because many people, and I get it all the time, I get phone calls, I get messages, DMs on Instagram where people are like, oh, do you know about this I won't call any out, but do you know about this production, do you know about that production, they said this and I paid $3,000 and I didn't get this and nobody came. And I'm like, well, you should ask the questions before you sign the contract.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
after.
Exactly.
There's nothing I can do at this point.
Read terms of conditions.
But seriously, and I don't mind. I do answer. The designers DM me, and I really will answer because I don't want to see people taken advantage of. And I don't believe everyone is maliciously intended.
Yes.
But you know, if it
You can
looks
never be
like
too sure.
if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it might be a duck. And so I do tell people that, but that's the way Fashion Week has because nobody can own New York Fashion Week, the actual
Yeah.
name, because it's you can't own that. But there are all of these productions. But New York Fashion Week, the official shows do happen at a designated time. But there are, and it's even spread out. Designers are showing in Brooklyn. Designers are showing in all over Manhattan. I mean, it's East Side, West Side, North Side, South Side. I mean, it's everywhere all day, and you plan your schedule as best you can. But I'll tell you, there's not a year that I don't miss a show because I can't get to it because of leaving one show late. They don't start on time. It's really become quite a situation, but we make it as best we can.
You try and do
There
it.
you
That's
go.
awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the shows are never able to be like just all owned by New York Fashion Week or anything like that.
Mhm.
Would you say that's better for the show or worse? Because I know that like with Kansas City Fashion Week, we are Fashion Week. Like that is just what we are.
Mhm.
Would you say that it's better to have more shows outside of it or no?
For New York, or
Yes, for New
Yeah.
York and just shows in general.
I mean, I think for the pulse and the movement of fashion, I think it's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
I do believe though that when it comes to industry, people have to understand that it's not just about entertainment. The
Yeah.
purpose of Fashion Week is for designers to show their collections, for press to be able to see
Mhm.
what's coming so they can write
Yeah.
about it, and then
Yes.
for buyers to be able to place orders for what's coming on the season. And although that I don't know if we have seasons anymore, really, but there has to be some structure according to the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
There has to be some structure. So I believe that when it comes to following structure,
Mhm.
which some people would argue, oh, it's a dead system. It's I believe that all business has to flow on some sort of system.
Yes,
So
For sure.
it gets disrupted, but then it finds its balance. And so I think that to keep things balanced, we need to have some sort of structure.
Yes.
But I don't see there's anything wrong with stuff going on all
Yeah.
year. Honestly,
Oh
I
yeah,
tell
yeah,
people, if you
for
work
sure.
in fashion in New York, Fashion Week lasts all year long.
Yes,
There's
yes.
there's always a presentation. There's always a store opening. There's always a
Yeah.
collection launch. There's always a product something. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always a collaboration. I mean, there's something every day, all 365. So
It's amazing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But in markets like this, because it's not oversaturated,
Mhm.
you don't really have that problem. So
Yeah.
for us like Kansas City Fashion Week and even the Fashion Arts Fund, which
Mhm.
I'm so happy about, has launched here, relaunched. But
Yes.
you have a little bit more control and can be more of a guiding force in
Yeah.
terms of how that happens throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love that.
Awesome. Well, I know every season you bring someone.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
not to kick Callie off the couch or anything, but we'd love to see.
Yeah,
We'd love to hear from who you brought, and
Yeah.
and let's have you do the introduction.
Okay.
But we'll cut Callie out here,
Okay.
and we'll swap out. And we're back for part 2 with Elliot Carlyle and your wonderful guest. And like I said, we're gonna have you introduce Edwin here in a second. One thing that I forgot on the first part
Mhm.
that we did, we had one question for you, and then we wanted to figure out how we could connect with you. So I know Eleni was going to ask the question. So
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for any younger people, or really just anyone wanting to get started out in the fashion industry, fashion community, anything?
It is to do your research and
Okay.
learn the business, learn the history. It may seem mundane, but I promise you it will serve you. When I started, again, like I said, I did not have a background or any education in fashion, so I was forced to really eat, sleep, and breathe the industry. And I read and I studied and I looked at not just what Instagram wasn't around at that time. I didn't have social media like that, but I really did read a lot of books, and I read the trade publications, and I started following what the news was, and just learning what the conversation was about the industry, because I find that a lot of young people and even people that I mentor, they'll often come up to me and say, I want to do what you do. I want to be in the rooms that you're in. I get that all the time. I want to rub shoulders with the people that you're rubbing shoulders with. But I tell people, but there's a conversation that's going on. We're not just rubbing shoulders. We're talking. We're exchanging. engaging, and I want you to be able to engage in the conversation. And so you do have to do your research, and you do have to learn, and also pace yourself.
Yes.
You don't have to become overnight. I
Mhm.
never had. I can't tell you when I started out that I would see myself doing what I'm doing today, or being, whatever it is that people see me as today.
Yes.
I just wanted to work. Honestly, I
Mhm.
just wanted to do the work. I just wanted to make a difference in whatever arena I could, and it led me to this place. And so, pace yourself, but also in the process, do your research and learn the business.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
And then the final thing that we have, and we're doing this with everyone, we're trying to build the community that you spoke to earlier. How can we connect with you? How can we connect with CFDA? What social media handles, all of that, would you like to share for individuals to reach out to you, to follow you, and then be in touch with CFDA as well?
Okay, well, for me, I'm pretty easy. It's just Elliot Carlyle on all social media, at Elliot Carlyle, Instagram, Twitter. I have a Facebook page. You can just search my name, and then my website is currentlyglobal.com. But also I have ElliotCarlyle.net. But Currently Global is my consulting agency, and you can also reach out to me via my website if you have any interest in discussing business, and if you have any questions, you can also DM me on Instagram. I do try to be responsive to those as well.
That's awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
And CFDA, of course, is CFDA.com. And I recommend everybody to sign up on the mailing list. And don't just sign up on the mailing list, read it.
Yeah.
And I say that because so many people ask me about things that come out and news, and I'm like, sign up on the mailing list. Oh, I did sign up. Well, did you not read it? Because this was in the newsletter. Really, really make sure that you read and pay attention. But that I do, so you can know what's happening in the industry.
Yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely. Well,
One
now,
more thing before. So since we are the Fashion Hive, we do ask one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get your best buzz?
like,
Like a bzzz.
Oh,
There we go. Okay, perfect.
there you go. There you
Perfect.
go.
Oh, I was like, what is she mean?
I was like, what is she talking
If she
Yes.
wants some like tea, she wants some moves. that kind of felt good. It was like a little meditation. Sit around and do that
Just
in the
gets it all
shower.
out for a second.